Rainmaker FM.
This podcast is brought to you by copyblogger.com. Words that work. Build your online authority with powerfully effective content marketing. Get superior content marketing education so you can build a remarkable online presence. Head over to copyblogger.com to learn more. That's copyblogger.com. Hey there, it is so good to see you again. Welcome back to Copyblogger FM, the content marketing podcast. Copyblogger FM is about emerging content marketing trends, interesting disasters, and enduring best practices, along with the occasional rant. My name is Sonia Simone. I'm the Chief Content Officer for Rainmaker Digital, and you can also find me hanging out over on the Copyblogger blog. Remember, you can always get the show notes for every episode. Those include links, free extras, by pointing your browser to copyblogger.fm. That's also where you can get the complete show archive. So today I thought I would talk about headlines. And headlines is a topic we cover pretty frequently at Copyblogger. We have covered it for a long time. And that is because they matter. It's because it's probably the fastest thing you can do to start getting more traffic and more shares for your content. You put a little bit of effort into studying them and you really get a nice payout. So today I thought I would help you by sharing a couple of quasi-magical ingredients you can put into your headlines that will make them work better, that will make more people read your stuff, listen to it, share it. Headlines have always been important. They've always been a really important part of copywriting, and they actually probably matter more than they ever have. Because the shorter your audience's attention span, the more important it is to connect with them really efficiently and quickly with really strong, compelling headlines. So if you think about the volume of stuff that we are asked every day to pay attention to, a headline is kind of a signpost. It says, hey, the good stuff is over here. Come pay attention to this because it's going to be worth your time. And of course, sometimes people share content without reading it at all. And they do that on the strength of the headline. It's because the headline makes it seem like the kind of thing that's probably going to be, useful or interesting for my friends. So I'll maybe read a paragraph or two, or maybe not read anything at all. A lot of people do share content without reading it at all on the strength of the headline. So a couple of tips before we start with our magical secret ingredients. First being, you don't have to do those weird clickbait headlines, the one weird trick kind of headlines. You don't have to do that, and you probably shouldn't do the ones that you see over and over again on Facebook. Because they really are associated with kind of crummy content. Now, if you're writing great stuff and you put that headline on it, it might work, and you could definitely try it out. But you don't have to. There's lots of more subtle ways to craft good headlines. And the first piece of advice, this is one that Brian Clark gave way, way back in the day, is to write your headline first. And the reason is that a headline is really a promise. It's a promise that this piece of content is going to be worth the audience's time and attention. And so normally, you make the promise and then you deliver on the promise. And that second part of things is crucial. And that's, I think, where we get this idea of negative ideas about clickbait headlines or about, content that's kind of all hat and no cattle, is because a lot of content has headlines that write a check that the content cannot cash. So once your piece is finished, the podcast is recorded, the blog post is written, go back and do a gut check. Is the promise in that headline really being lived up to? And if it doesn't, you have a couple of options. You can beef up the content to make it really fulfill that promise. It's also totally legitimate to go back to the headline and soften it up a little. under promise a little bit. It's better to go a little soft on the headline than to entice with a clickbait headline that goes to something that fulfills like 1/100th of the promise. And we've all clicked on those on Facebook, all of that, kind of crummy content we see on Facebook. A lot of it is sponsored and it goes somewhere and it's pretty poor. So assuming that you are willing to put the work in to, create content that lives up to the headline, here are three almost magical kind of things you can put in headlines that make them work better. And the first one are benefits. This is benefits from a copywriting standpoint. So the thing they get out of it, what the audience is going to get. What are they going to be? What will they be able to do? What will they be able to have or become because they've read this piece of content? We sometimes talk about it as the transformation. What is it that they're going to do differently? And how are they going to be different after they've read this piece of content? So there are lots of ways that you can construct headlines where you can remember to put benefits front and center. One of the most tried and true being our good old friend, the how-to headline. So how-to followed by thing they want. And the key to making this work, and actually the key to making copywriting benefits in general work, is really putting the time and effort to think about what are they actually after? What do they really want? Do they want love and connection? Do they want more confidence? Do they want to feel safe or secure? It has to be this real gut deep level stuff to really work. So if you think about a headline like how to get your finances in order so you can sleep at night, that's about someone who does not feel safe right now because, they feel like their financial situation is precarious, and being able to sleep at night is really a very primal thing about feeling safe, feeling secure, and getting rid of that burden of anxiety. Or a headline like how to finally reach your exercise goals and feel like a rock star. And that's really about feeling confident. Finally reach. That suggests it's been a while. You've been trying to do this thing. It's been hard. You've been frustrated. When you actually accomplish it, you're going to feel really confident. You're going to have really great self-image. Or how to master content marketing so running your business is fun again. So that again, there's some security there. Running your business is not fun because your marketing's not working. We're talking about stress. We're talking about, a lack of a feeling of safety. So see if you can get primal with it and figure out what is it fundamentally at the core that they want to get, and try and speak to that. So each of those headlines is a task that's kind of boring, like getting your finances in order, and it's paired with an emotional benefit. And benefits are great because they're always interesting if they're what the person really wants. So if you're going to be thinking about copywriting benefits, and as always, I will leave you some links in the show notes to read more about those, you want to be careful of something that some copywriters have called fake benefits. So Brian Clark, I know, used an example once of, balancing your blood sugar. Honestly, really, that kind of doesn't matter to most people unless you're very scientifically minded and you're really able to connect the dots. Balancing your blood sugar is kind of vague. It's abstract. Whereas live a long, healthy life so you can see your grandkids graduate from college, that's not vague. That's not abstract. It's concrete. And it's something that we can really care about. We care about our grandkids. We care about living a long time and a healthy long time so that we can experience more of those connections and those relationships. So magical ingredient number 1 is benefits. And magical ingredient number 2 is numbers. So good writers often hate numbered list content. It can really feel like hack work. A lot of it is done as hack work. And if that wasn't bad enough, someone came up with the insanely terrible word listicle to describe them. I don't want to write listicles either. If I were asked to write a listicle, I think I would Go out and have 2 or 3 very stiff drinks, and I'm not a drinker. So let's not call it a listicle. Let's just talk about a numbered list post. But it is funny because numbers do have this weird kind of magic to them, and it's why we still see a lot of them. When we can name a number, when we can count something, it becomes more real. If it's countable, it feels tangible. Now, you can find out there all kinds of, this is and that's and analysis and all the rest of it about which numbers are good numbers. And to tell you the just straight truth, I don't think that's a great thing to spend a lot of your brain power on. If you have 6 points in your article, should you make it 7 points? Because 7 is a more pleasing number. Well, 7 just feels good. 7 feels like a good number. But if one of your points is just dopey fluff and padding to push it up to 7, don't do that. Leave it at 6. Or you can cut your weakest point and make it 5. Specificity is compelling, always. And weird numbers are interesting. So 83.4 is more interesting than more than 80 or nearly 85. So if it's a weird number, sometimes I think that can be a strength. I really prefer, from your content strategy point of view, to look over your content calendar for the month and make sure you're not only writing 10 ways to kind of list posts. Both because it looks a bit dreary, it looks a bit boring, and because I think it gets you into a kind of a sloppy habit of thinking of things until you hit 10 and then stopping. Whereas I'd rather see you think of like a bunch of things and then go back and count them and think, okay, out of these 17 things I wrote, what are the 10 that are really strong? Now, as a consequence of the fact that I like to do it that way, I write a lot of numbered posts that have weird numbers, like 8 ways to do something. It's just kind of strange. And it hasn't done me any harm. Some of those 8 posts have done really, really well and gotten a lot of traffic and a lot of shares. But putting that number on there, attaching it to the headline and also to the post, running those numbers through the post in your subheads, it gives you structure and specificity, and it makes that promise more concrete, and that nearly always will make your promise more interesting. And the other question on numbers is, should I do 10 or should I do 101? And my answer is sort of do what the occasion seems to call for. So those monster list posts, you don't see as many of them because I think the feeling is that, attention spans today just won't support them. But my feeling is because people do them so rarely now, if you threw one or two a year into the mix, maybe that was your January 1st post every year or some kind of special occasion post, they can get a lot of attention because they do stand out now, the big number. So if you feel called to do them, I would say do them. The smaller numbers do well because people's, they don't have a ton of time necessarily. And then the third kind of magic ingredient would be headline formulas or headline structures that you can, just kind of cut and paste and use. And this could be anything from going to magazines.com and looking at magazine headlines and tweaking them. Brian wrote about that years ago, about looking at Cosmopolitan magazine and just swiping their headline structure. I really like that as just a way to get some ideas. It's just a way, it's kind of left field way to get some content ideas. But there are many headline formulas, and the truth is most of them will work if you're using them thoughtfully. And the nice thing about some resources for headline formulas is they help you vary your headlines so that your site is more interesting and compelling. And if somebody gets sort of sucked into one piece of content and then another, it feels varied and it doesn't feel so formulaic if you have a wide range of structures that you're choosing from. So it's just smart to really think through a headline formula, think through what it's really communicating. What is it conveying and why would that be good for your audience? Because I have seen people just kind of copy things from classic books on copywriting. And sometimes those headlines, they feel either just kind of odd or very stiff and artificial. You know, like the headline structure, who else wants to, make $1 million this year? To me, that always feels like it just got lifted right out of a copywriting book from about 1928. So, that might just be my quirk, but I find them, maybe because I've read so many copywriting books, I can find them a little stiff if you don't really adapt them and understand how they're working with your audience. So, one of those headline structures a lot of us use is the secret of, the secret of blank. So let's say we go with the secret of baking a cake that's both gorgeous and delicious. So you know that you're going to be offering a benefit, right? This is going to work because delicious cake is itself a benefit. I like delicious cake. I bet you do too. And then there's another benefit, which is that the cake is gorgeous. It looks good. So there's some confidence, right? If you bake something and you bring it to, your kid's school event or a dinner party or something, you feel kind of like pretty cool about yourself if you bake something that looks awesome, right? It just gives you that much more confidence. So there's a confidence play here as well. And then we've put the word secret in there. So I personally prefer not to use secret in a headline unless there's something in the headline that not everybody knows. So, maybe the secret of baking a cake that's both gorgeous and delicious is a weird ingredient. It's sour cream or coconut oil or something. Or it's some kind of a special tool. Or it's a particular technique. You refrigerate things at a certain part of the process, and that makes all the difference. But it should be something that's not generally known. The secret shouldn't be that you should beat your eggs with a mixer. That's just silly. So if you're going to use some structures, really think about what is it that makes this structure work? Am I combining kind of curiosity with the benefit? Am I using specificity like numbers? Am I making a big promise? Am I, revealing something that the person wants to know more about? Really try and understand, why am I using this formula instead of just, cutting and pasting things and plonking some nouns and verbs in. So we have more ideas for you on headlines. We have lots of ideas. We have written about headlines many times on Copyblogger. And in fact, Brian Clark, who founded Copyblogger, was known from the early days for his advice on headlines. And it's just because he simply studied them and got good at them. It's just that simple. And as we talked about at the top of the episode, headlines are fun to work on because you can put a little bit of study in, you can try some things, and you can get a lot better really quickly. And when you get a lot better, you will see results really quickly. You will start to see a lot more shares and a lot more engagement and a lot more traffic. So if you would like a whole book on headlines, both the strategy and then a whole bunch of formulas that you can use and you can adapt and, figure out how to make them relevant to your audience. We have a whole book on them. It is written by Brian Clark, and it is free when you register for My Copyblogger, which is also free. And that is our free content marketing library, has tons of content strategy and advice for you. All you have to do is go to the copyblogger.com blog, look for the education tab right there at the top of the page, and choose free My Copyblogger. And you can get signed up. Honestly, it'll take you well under a minute. And then you get instant access to all the books in the content marketing library. And they're good. They're good stuff. So there you have it. 3, number in the headline. Nearly magic. So nearly magic is kind of like secret, right? Magic and secret offer the same thing. It's things that maybe not everybody knows yet. Secrets to creating headlines that give you more traffic, engagement, and shares. Those are benefits. If we have websites, we would like to have those things. So that's it for today. Thank you so much, as always, for your time and your attention, and I'll catch you next week. Take care.